How many of you know for certain that the code that you're writing is accessible? Ooh, that was dismal. Yeah. Full stack? Well, I know Chris's stuff is accessible. You too? You do check it? What do you use to check it? Okay. Like Axe? Axe. Yeah, Axe is definitely one of the better ones. So I'm actually going to be talking about chatbots and the accessibility of chatbots and how we actually build our chatbots so that people with disabilities or just power users can actually use them, because they're getting better as time goes on, because they are learning that, oh, they have some accessibility missteps within them. But a lot of the chatbots still have horrible UX patterns, horrible contrasts, and horrible, support from a coding perspective. What I'm going to speak about are the absolute bare minimums that would actually go into a chatbot UI in order for someone who is using a screen reader to be able to use it. So, as introduced earlier, my name is Homer Gaines. I've been doing accessibility now for 25 years, and I've been a front-end developer for the past 30 years. I lead several teams, worked corporate, worked startups, you name it. Now, I go around to conferences when I'm not at work, and I like to speak about this. I am local here to Atlanta, so if any of you are here, let's connect. Maybe I'll see you out at the next meetup or whatnot. So we're going to talk about the anatomy of accessible chat interfaces. Earth is hella old, 4.5 billion years old. Stay with me, there's a point. We've only been here in the grand scheme of things for 30 seconds. That's it. AI has only been here for 1,000th of a second after midnight. So when you think about all the years that have passed and how technology has progressed, it really hasn't been that long for technology to move in the grand scheme of things. Any Star Trek fans here? Nerds, welcome. Watching Next Generation, right? We used to see the holodeck all the time. Data would go in there, Picard would go in there, it would go wacky. We had the holodeck. We have holodecks at home right now. If any of you have like an Oculus, that's the beginning of it. That's how it all starts. But when we think about how far Next Gen was in the future compared to the stats that I just gave you, that's probably been 2 hours, maybe 2, 3, 4 hours past midnight. But when we were watching the holodeck on Star Trek, what we did not realize was that when Strange New Worlds released, it's in the past. Strange New Worlds is actually where they first introduced the holodeck. Strange New Worlds actually took place 100 years before Next Generation. So it took time for the software, for the applications to actually catch up to the point to where all the bugs and all the kinks have been worked out. Just because it was new doesn't mean that people weren't using it, just wasn't safe at times. In fact, this particular episode was the first time that they actually used it, and the thing glitched on them and almost killed the whole cast. But we got to start somewhere. There's a lot of people who are just like, they'll dump on AI, and I understand why. I definitely understand why. But for those things that we've dreamed about when we've watched sci-fi shows, whatever sci-fi show it is, whether you Star Trek, Star Wars, Deep Space Nine, anything, Cylon Warriors, Battlestar, anywhere in the future that you go, the technology that exists there had to start somewhere in the past. And it started just as clumsy as our chat does now, as all of our LLMs are now. I saw this crazy article the other day where this guy, I can't even remember his name, but he was suggesting that with all the issues that we have with LLMs, that we should start approaching LLM as if we are babies and it's a nurturing mother. No. That is the absolute wrong thing to do. Because at this point in time, how many of you would trust your 4-year-old with the keys to your car? Facts, right? Right? We've seen the horror stories. Some CEO gives an LLM complete control of the company, and the LLM goes rogue and just deletes the whole company from existence. Right? I'm not only going to delete your database, I'm going to go ahead and just knock out your volumes as well. So now you lose everything. Pain points, but we got to start somewhere. Love it or hate it, they exist. We actually had chatbots early on, started in 2000. Very, very basic chatbots. That was when we started making our phone calls to our utility companies, and we started hearing, if you'd like this, press 1. If you want this, press 2. And then you hear the random sound like somebody was actually doing somewhere. I hated that. That was on Comcast. I couldn't stand that. Internet service is out. You get the voice, and then you get the fake typing. I know you're not there, so I'm just mashing 0 to get into it. They were simple decision trees. Ask a question, get an answer. Ask a question, get an answer. Problem was, when you asked a question and you didn't get an answer, you had a dead end, you had no recourse. You had nowhere to go. Who do you speak to now? Really shady companies just hung up on you. They didn't even allow you to hit 0. This is what they look like. Simple. I believe this one comes from Target. It steers you in the direction that it wants the conversation to go, not necessarily what you may need. And this is based on their marketing. This is based on the data that they collect from their users. Well, if you're not an avid shopper of their website, you may not fit this model. So therefore, you might end up in where the red X is. 2010, Target, now we become data-driven. Now it's not about actually fulfilling the need of the user, but more about collecting the data from you so that they can try to improve their product and their services. It's called sentiment. We want to gauge how you feel about your service with us. We've all been on that phone call. At the end of this call, if you'd like to take a survey, who hangs up? Y'all take the survey? Word? They love y'all. Hartsville, Atlanta. You go to the bathroom. You see this. Who touches the screen on the bathroom on the way out? Do you go back in and wash your hands? Ah, got it. But yeah, this is legit. This is the UI coming out of the bathroom at Hartsville. How was your experience with using the bathroom? Was it clean? I've seen some dude press the pour when I just chuckled. Then we enter this new realm of AI, this new world. 2020, sucky year for a whole lot of folks, right? LLMs blew up. Why? Because we could not actually get out to go socialize like this or do anything with human-to-human contact. We had to interact in a virtual way. There was a study done with the hotel industry where they found that 73% of their guests would rather interact with a chatbot than have to deal with hotel staff. That's how a lot of hotels actually survived when they went to low touch. They just made their LLMs more available to their guests through the chatbots. And then we started putting AI in every freaking thing. So travel safe. Good luck tomorrow, man. Business sectors blew up with it. Marketing, retail, customer service, human resources. I don't know if any of you have ever had to deal with a chatbot while trying to deal with a human resource issue. How many of you have seen Elysium? You ever see that movie? In Elysium, there's a scene where the main character is having an argument with an animatronic in front of him. The animatronic is his counselor. And the animatronic senses that he is getting upset, and up from the desk pops anxiety medicine. The most sterile, unnurturing thing ever. You got this mannequin in front of you saying that you have anxiety, here, take these pills. That's what it's like when you're dealing with a chatbot, when you are trying to figure out a human resource issue. Healthcare is just as crazy, even though healthcare is leaning hard into chatbots right now in the form of therapy. Some of you know this, a lot of you don't. I used to be a therapist. I know what it's like to sit in a room and have to counsel people. That's one of the reasons that I got into what I'm doing now. It's because I understand how humans work with machines. I understand that behavior. It was my job. Early on, I was actually training to become an FBI profiler. So I always paid attention to human patterns and things like that. Having it inside of healthcare can be dangerous. There are stories of kids right now who are using ChatGPT for counseling. And then the worst happens. It is not solid. It also has zero accountability. Who do you blame when something that bad goes wrong? Nobody. Finance. Yo, OpenAI just recently said they want to start a financial app. Who here trusts ChatGPT with your bank account? They literally said, all you have to do is just connect your bank account to, hell no. Not when I see you deleting entire databases. Can you imagine opening up your phone and actually your whole joint is just on zero or negative? I'm good. Unfortunately, and fortunately, it's making money. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But we're supposed to see a 23.3% growth in business using AI by 2028. We'll see what happens with that, especially with the way that things are turning around now. There are some studies that are out right now that show that it's actually more expensive to spend tokens to do the development than it is to actually have a full-time developer writing the code, because you have to hire the full-time developers to come back and fix the things that the code or that the LLM got wrong. I did that the other day. Was working with my team. He was using a skill. The skill was like, oh, there's some accessibility issues in this code. Let me go ahead and fix it. That bad boy found the issue, fixed the issue, opened up a PR, put the fix in there, committed the PR, and pushed out to prod without any human interaction or involvement. We didn't find out until we came back in the next morning. Turns out the fix that it put in actually made the accessibility issue worse. So I had to pull it out and actually correct it. It all started here. Macworld, 2007. This is when the iPhone was introduced. This is when communication for us changed. This is when we started interacting with that thing that we carry in our pockets. This was the beginning of it. 79% of all chats take place on your phone. 79. Has anyone ever tried to use the accessibility features on your phone? Do you even know where they are? Which one do you use?
I like to use the grayscale to stop myself from using my phone.
Fair.
For my work, I've turned on like TalkBack and text enlargement.
Yep. TalkBack is a big one. TalkBack is a screen reader for Android phones. If you're on an iOS device, it's called VoiceOver. When you're interacting with your phone, you can actually turn these on and it can help communicate to you. If you're reading something or to read something out to you, announced to you, you could be washing the dishes and have it read an article to you. It's handy. Helps people with disabilities, but it also helps Anyone else? Conversational UI is what it's called. Anyone ever see that movie, Her? Guy fell in love with his device. It had no screen whatsoever. It was just a device that sat on his desk, and he was talking to it. Same way that we talk to LLMs now. Just a voice, that was it. And this is pretty much what it looked like, on the device itself. Now, we have push to talk. If you have Alexa or Google at home, you give it its keyword, it wakes up, and you can have a conversation with it. But this is what we're dealing with in a static world. When we're dealing with a chat UI. And since they've been introduced to computers, they really haven't changed much. And the problem with that is that when they did come out, it wasn't like there was a whole lot of research around the accessibility of it, because accessibility really wasn't being thought of as much back then. First time that I started dealing with accessibility was in 2001 when I was working for Johnson & Johnson. And that was because some lawsuits had popped up around 508 and also around the early version of the WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and the rules that are mentioned within inside there. But we had these static UIs. And unfortunately, chatbots, they cater to abled users. You have to be able to use your mouse. You have to be able to see. You have to be able to type. Well, what if you can't use a mouse? How do you interact with it? What if you can't see it? What if you are trying to talk to your doctor and they send you to a chatbot to have a conversation first? Now you need to understand what is up with the medication that you have. It's not making you feel very well. If you call in, what happens? You get sent into the chatbot there, and you have to be able to press the buttons on the phone. Well, our phones don't have tactile buttons anymore. So how is this person supposed to be able to get any of the information that they need without actually asking someone else for assistance? At some point in time, we love our independence. We don't have to want to rely on somebody else. You shouldn't take that ability from someone because the technology wasn't designed for them. It focuses on abled users. How so? Tunnel vision. I see this all the time, working with engineers, working with designers, working with content writers. The designer sits there and they have a nice wide screen. To them, everybody has this wide screen, so they use that. How many of you have designers? Who all in here is a designer? Anybody? Okay. The rest of you work with designers. Do your designers come to you with mobile designs, or do you have to ask for them? Or for small screen designs? No? Good. Being able to work across different mediums is a requirement from a legal perspective. And it's no longer desktop, tablet, or mobile, because this is mobile. It has a 1440 by 400 resolution. It's mobile. Reflow, how things scale when that user needs to be able to move the window around, resize, or flip the orientation. The information still has to be presented in a way that is not obstructed and that the user doesn't lose anything. But designers and developers, at some point in time, I'm guilty of it too. We had tunnel vision. We thought that everybody used computers the exact same way that we did, or we laid out this happy path of navigation thinking that it was the best thing for the user when users actually found other ways to use our apps. Starting here. Is it accessible? Form elements are atrocious when it comes to this. Sometimes they don't have labels. Sometimes they're not even marked if they're required or optional. And if it is required, it's a star. When you first glance at it, does a star actually tell you anything? If you can't perceive that star, does it tell you anything? How does that communicate to someone with low vision? Then I get clowns like this. AI doesn't have to be accessible. I've had people at conferences tell me this before. And then they say that UI is dead because, AI is going to be able to do everything. We don't have to worry about interacting with it. It's going to put us in that world where homeboy was interacting with his device from her. There was still a level of interactivity that he had with it, but it was all his voice. He didn't need to use the AI, or he didn't need a UI for it, right? No, incorrect. And then Jacob Nielsen dropped this freaking banger, talking about, hello AI agents, goodbye UI and accessibility is dead. You freaking kidding me? This was our collective response when that article dropped out. It was like, but I hear this a lot. I hear it a lot, and it's disheartening. In order for an LLM to even work, the data has to be what? Accessible. It's accessible in what form? The digital form. LLM's not going to work if it can't get the data. So you still have to make things accessible even for an LLM to be able to consume it. It just won't grab it out of the ether. So what's really going on? We have to remember that we're trying to have a conversation when we're using the chatbots, right? We have someone who needs to ask a question, find answers. Sometimes it's a person on the other side of that. Sometimes it's not. Even if it is a person on the other side, these rules still apply. We know that the keyboard experience is just trash. It may not seem like it to you because we're used to typing and things like that, right? We type on our computers all the time. But the keyboard experience for a chatbot is really trash. Why? Because you don't actually know what's happening. That brings us into the first rule. Earlier, I mentioned the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. It has several success criteria legally that we must meet in order for our applications to be considered passing. This particular one, keyboards, means that you have keyboard support. The user, a power user, whether they have a disability or not, they can use the keyboard to be able to complete a task. It's success criteria 211. It is level A. What that level means, there's 3 levels inside the WCAG. A, AA, AAA. A is subfloor. A is something that should be done without question. Do it in your sleep. AA is where the law actually steps in. They say at least AA. You walking through the door to come into this facility, that was AA. You being able to walk in, grab pizza, and sit down and listen, that is going beyond AA. You don't just check the box. You actually came to this event to get something, to learn something. That is going beyond what was required of you. Because if you just wanted to say you showed up, all you had to do was walk through the door, turn right back around, and go out. You checked the box. I came to the event and I left. But you wanted more. We have to look at accessibility the same way. You can't just take the WCAG and the success criteria and check the box and think that everything is accessible. Because a lot of times you have to go beyond that in order to make things work. This is why the chat interface is wonky. You have a text input down at the bottom usually, along with a send button. But all the magic happens up top. So what the user is doing, if they're good, they type here and they watch what's happening here. But if they're not, their eye, they have to constantly do this. Now, granted, it's in a small field of vision, right? But it's still cognitively taxing. Now you take someone who has mobility issues. They can't type on a keyboard the way that we type. They may have one hand. They may have a baby in this hand and they're trying to type. If you make complex key combinations for your chatbot, they're going to have a hard time trying to manage that. Here's another one. You have somebody with low vision and they have to use screen magnification, not zoom, but magnification, where they actually zoom into the UI. So now they have to zoom into the UI at the bottom where they're typing in their question. Then they have to move the screen literally to be able to see the chat. And the whole chat still may not even be fully in view. So that's why this gets kludgy. The inputs always stay within focus, even though the conversation is outside of where that focus is. We always stay right here. That's the interactivity of it. Voice chat, you stay at the top. You stay where you see the EQ waves happening, if that's how the UI is designed. Another issue that we have with chat is small text, going back to individuals with low vision. A lot of text within inside, especially the helper text inside of chats that I've seen, is just too small, 12 pixels. You have to blow that up just so you can read it. For anyone who has tired eyes or whatnot, you've been looking at a computer all day, your eyes get tired. I can guarantee you, the older you get, the less light comes into your eye. Someone who is, I believe, 60 years old sees 20% less light than someone who is 30. It's going to happen. Text is too small. Recommended font size for UIs starts at 14. That's considered small by today's standards. Normal font size should be 16 pixels. Then you also have to make sure that when you have links inside of your chat UIs, that you make your links look like links. I know a lot of designers, I was one of them. We used to take that underline away from our links because it just looked like trash. We wanted to be creative. It made our UI look cluttered. But then I learned that there are people with low vision, color blindness, who can't see where those links are. We've seen UIs that look like this. We've seen articles where you're reading an article and you go through and there is a blue link in there with zero hint that it's even a link. Someone who is colorblind, say blue, color blindness, blue, yellow, what do you think they'll see here? Someone who has grayscale, that's all they see. What do you think they see? They won't know where those links are because everything just looks like body text. And so inside of our UIs, for any UI that you're actually developing, you want to have those underlines. That is a visual affordance to allow someone to scan and see where they are and scan and see what is actually interactive versus what is not. This also goes back to another rule in the WCAG, use of color. Here, this is a failure. Not necessarily because it doesn't have an underline, but it is a failure of use of color. This rule states that you cannot use color alone to convey status, meaning. That's what this is doing. They changed the color to let you know that it's a link, but if the person cannot perceive this color, they cannot tell that it's a link. And then our controls aren't labeled. What button is this? No, for real, what button's there? It's not blank. There's a button there. There is something there. There's a button. What does this mean? You sure? You sure? See, that's the thing. Everyone can come up with different labels for this. But for someone who cannot perceive it and they're using their voice to control the UI, how do they know how to send a message? So when you're inside your chat UI and there's no label on the button that actually says send, but instead it's just an icon, if you're using your voice, guess what? The voice, you have to use and call out a specific label. You can't say airplane icon. That's not going to work. So now someone who's using Dragon, TalkBack, iOS to control their UI, they won't know how to send this message because they don't have a visible label guiding them. And this is what it looks like in the code. It's just a button and an SVG. When in reality, there should be a distinguishable label for this button. If you have send, perfect. Send is in a digital format. It is going to get picked up. That is a semantic button. You can also use an aria label. But if you're going to do an icon button like this, what you would want to have is a tooltip assigned to it. Because that way, when the button is in focus, the tooltip pops up, gives the person a label that they can now speak to, or they can now understand what the purpose of this button is. Because even though a lot of us understand this, icons are really not that universal across cultures, across social groups. Not everybody has the same schema and processes data the same way. Label and name. We want to label our UI. The other issue with chat is that the messages, they're just not announced. And this is the problem with where you're typing here, you visually see something happen in the chat, but unless you actually told your chat to announce what's actually happening to assistive tech like a screen reader, if someone is using a screen reader and they're typing, they won't know that anything actually popped up. This is one of the bare minimums to add to that window, roll log. Anyone familiar with it? Anyone ever used it in your development? Cool. What type of app were you building that you use roll log? Got you. Good deal. So roll log. What's roll log going to do? It's a live region. It lets you know when there's new information that's been added. It'll also do it in the order in which the information comes in. Also, old information may disappear. And that's exactly what a chat is. We have new information that is coming in from the top. And so what you want to happen is that anytime something new appears, you don't want it to read everything all over again. You just want it to read what's new. Roll log will assist you with that. Roll log is the same thing as having aria-live on that particular div or that text area. But be careful. aria-live does not equal the same thing as a roll log. They are very specific, unique tags. So you can have roll log and it will assume the role of being aria-live. But if you just have aria-live on that particular area and expect it to announce, it won't. The other thing with aria-live is that anytime you have a div, an alert, any type of UI update, any type of update that happens on your screen, this must be there first. It has to be an empty container. And what it's going to do is that it will announce any type of update that happens with inside of it. But if that aria-live is not on the page first and you throw it on there, it's not going to announce. It's cool that you added it, you just added it in the wrong place. So when you're using aria-live, make sure it's already on the page inside the DOM before any of the data changes inside of it. The best way to do this is with an aria-polite. There's two, aria-polite and aria-assertive. Polite is just that, it's polite. It doesn't interrupt the user. If they stop whatever it is that they're doing, aria-live will announce whatever it needs to. An aria-assertive will straight up just interrupt them, regardless of what you're doing. You're in the middle of typing something, it doesn't care. It's going to start announcing to you. That can be distracting to your users. And since you're just doing a chat, you don't necessarily want to be a bully in the conversation. So politely go about announcing the information. Then we have atomic true, we have atomic false, and we have atomic relevant. So what does true do? Everything in a live region will be announced. Everything. So if you were in this chat for like, say, an hour, and you guys were vigorously typing, all of that is going to come back to you. That's going to be annoying. You don't want to actually do that. It's good to put that inside of a summary where it can actually be read back later on, but you definitely don't want to do that inside of the live chat UI. False, this is the default value. Whether you add it or not, it's already going to be there. It's also going to help to announce new content. Pairing this with the aria log, perfect. And relevant, it will just describe the change that happens. This adds additional information if you choose to add that in there. Again, these are just bare bones suggestions. How you actually use these will be determined by your app, your UX patterns, and your code stack. Well, when I say code stack, your coding practices, how you and the team decide that you actually want to write this code. And that's my talk. Sorry for the delay, and I hope it was informative.